Right guys, still haven't decided if I'm training biceps or triceps, but yeah, just got to the gym, having my black coffee, and then gonna start the workout. So yeah, should be fine filming here, hopefully. It's pretty chill, there's not too many people around. Nice little space. Right guys, so basically at this point in time, as you can see, moved to a new location and I've actually managed to find a hotel gym. Well, I say find, I didn't actually book this place with the knowledge that it had a gym. So this was an insanely nice surprise. And yeah, pretty much this was really nice just having access to a few pieces of equipment. So just to break it down again, if you didn't kind of clock in the intro there, what we've got is two adjustable benches. So, you know, when I say two, obviously I don't need two myself, but it's nice. It gives a bit more freedom if there is someone else in there. You've got the opportunity to use a bench as well. We've got dumbbells up to, I think, 25 kg, which is actually pretty decent. There's a decent cable machine there with a fair few attachments, some mats, some foam rollers, got an assault bike, and then a seated bike alongside basically like a multi-trainer. So you can do chest press on there, you can kind of do some variation of flies, but that is kind of it. So what I'm doing here with my training is breaking it down even further. So yeah, starting off here, as you can see, with the incline bicep curls. Now, this whole session itself is just biceps. So that's what I'm going to be talking about here, is basically how I've designed my training for the time being, knowing that I've got access to a hotel gym. So because my training frequency is very high, meaning the amount of times that I train throughout the week is very high. It's basically 7 times. Potentially, I can even train twice a day, which is very unlikely, but it is sometimes an occurrence. So if I'm training 7 times a week, that means that I have more opportunities to train different muscle groups each day, if that makes sense. Whereas for someone that can only realistically get to the gym, you know, 3 to 4 times a week, or maybe that's the only amount of time that they want to go to the gym, they're likely going to be forced to condense more muscle groups into one session. So for me, having a hotel gym, obviously, that means the simplicity of just being able to use it without having to travel there. So I'm not worrying about time out of my day, other things like that. There's less barriers to actually work out, meaning that I am more likely to do it more frequently. And that's the same that goes for having a home gym. So in that aspect, I find that the sessions might not be as long, but they're more frequent. So it makes more sense for me to capitalize on that. And in my opinion, focus on maximum two, but usually just one muscle group. So you can see here, rather than force myself to do arms, I'm just going to focus on biceps today, and then probably the day after I'll do triceps, and then I'll go from there. So it just helps me to break it down and actually just focus on using the equipment that I've got without forcing myself to come up with a whole arm day, for example, which, to be fair, arms isn't the best example because you can pretty much do everything with just cables, if not cables and dumbbells. But you can see what I'm trying to say. In my opinion, sometimes it's nice to take that opportunity to just really focus on one muscle. And that way, if I'm not trying to do too many muscle groups in one session, I'm going to be less likely to neglect them based on the fact that there isn't a huge array of equipment there. So if you're at a normal gym, you kind of have much more pick and choice of how you fatigue each muscle group. Whereas, as I said, if you've got limited equipment, you might kind of struggle to fatigue all of those muscles if you are doing multiple muscle groups. At least that's my theory. So by spending more time on one, although you might do slightly less variation of movements and maybe less exercises, the overall sets may be the same, or if not more, because you've just allowed yourself that extra time. So the exercises that I'm doing here, you can see I'm going for a double cable curl here. So I'm mixing up, going from dumbbells to then going to the cables. I will say both of these exercises are quite similar because you can see I'm letting my arm and my elbow come back behind my body. And that's something that I do in both of those exercises, where if you go for something such as a preacher curl, your arm will be in front of your body. So many different variations. You could do this exercise on a seat. You could do this exercise one arm at a time. You could also, you know, completely basically vary the actual apparatus that you use to pull the weight up, so you don't have to use a individual D handle. You could use a cuff. So there's many different ways. And then you can see here the curl that I'm doing on the cable. My arms are pretty much slightly in front of my body, if not at my sides. And when I'm talking about my arms, I'm mainly talking about the top part of my arm there. So actually my bicep and kind of my shoulder joint, where my forearm moves, is, yeah, basically more, I'd say, in line or in front of my body. Whereas, as I said, in the incline curls, whether that be on a dumbbell or a cable, it stretches behind. So I really do find a huge benefit in varying those. And as I look back at my training over the past few years, as I've really been able to develop my arms, and that's something which has gone from something which I think was pretty much a weak point to now probably one of my stronger points, is variation and volume and frequency. So I know there's three huge things there, but I don't think the reps are too important. I don't think the weight's too important. And, you know, I think if you do find a couple exercises that you like, that can be enough, but you need to be doing them, you know, very frequently. And I do think you benefit, or at least I have benefited from, high volume arm days. So yeah, I know that sounds quite straightforward, but, you know, for other muscle groups, I would argue that adding weight onto your weekly reps and, you know, working sets would be much more beneficial than arms. So definitely worth experimenting with. If you guys are not doing arm days, or you've never done just biceps or just triceps, it can be crazy. And I'm not saying that you have to do it every single week, but throwing it in once every now and then, you can get some insane DOMs, and it kind of just puts into perspective how much you can actually fatigue a muscle. So don't get me wrong, I can get some tricep soreness from doing a push day, even sometimes if I've not done arms in a little while, and then I do like a shoulder press or an incline press or something like that, it can be really crazy tricep DOMs. But if I then move on to something else, such as, you know, accessories, you know, overhead tricep rope or a push down in that same session, that give me more fatigue. Whereas if I do strictly an arm day, or go even further and do just a tricep day, as I said, the muscle soreness that I get the days after is absolutely incredible. And it then makes you realize that actually you probably weren't doing the maximum that you could do if you weren't isolating those muscle groups, not just in the session, but when you're actually more fresh. So yeah, I always do recommend this every now and then. Just pick one muscle group and really work it like crazy. And having a hotel gym is a great example of, you know, taking note and being able to do that. So you can see here, physique update, definitely looking lean at this point, guys. And having just a bicep pump is pretty crazy. I think that's also really cool because nothing else is really pumped, so you can really highlight that muscle. As you can see there, when I'm just doing a bicep flex, you know, my back still looks pretty pumped. I'd say that's probably just from bracing and making sure that the weight comes down in a decent manner. But obviously when I do that bicep flex there, you can see that bicep is pumped like crazy. So I can't remember if this day I was fasted or not, but the further into the diet I get, the higher the likeliness that I am fasted on these sessions. And the only kind of things I'm having is black coffee, electrolytes, and Red Bull. So yeah, keeping it very simple and keeping it very, I'd say, you know, majority clean. The meals that I'm having here are pretty much protein shakes and then chicken and rice boxes from 7-Eleven, rotating that with other things such as fruit, and then some protein granola bars, and, you know, eggs, things like that. Just getting my protein sources from different products there, but keeping it very high on the protein index. So not going for things such as lentils or beans, focusing more on that true protein content, which is even more important when you are in a dieting phase compared to a bulk, because your body has to be basically more efficient and it can't just grab kind of trace proteins and amino acids from everywhere. At least that's my understanding. Maybe I've explained that in not the most perfect way, but to be honest with you, what I'm saying is factual in terms of getting your protein from milk, beef, eggs, whey protein, turkey, chicken, things like that. Tuna can be really, really good. So yeah, definitely prioritize that over, you know, protein bagels and other things like that, guys. So yeah, you can see here there's a pretty crazy fire show, which was cool to see. Like, literally just recording this from the gym, not from my actual apartment. So some decent background entertainment, not that you need it, obviously I'm focusing, but, you know, it's pretty cool, something that you don't see in your typical gym. So yeah, I'll pretty much leave it there, guys. These are just a few clips from my iPhone, so just showing you even more variation with the attachments. I literally just destroyed my biceps, and that's something that I continue to do to this day and will continue to do in the future. Bicep only, or specifically, you know, arm days, triceps only. They are absolutely insane for growth. And now I'm talking about it, all I want to do is hit arms. So probably gonna do that tomorrow. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions that you have related to, you know, fitness or travel or nutrition, then drop them in the comments, because I've got a few more voiceovers coming in the next few days of these hotel gym videos. So yeah, appreciate you guys watching. And as always, the only way is up.